Welcome to your deep dive. Looks like you're ready to really get into blockchain.
Yeah, you've given us a ton of material on everything from like pinata and decentralized storage
Mhm.
to even like career paths in blockchain security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we'll be looking at how blockchain is going way beyond just cryptocurrency and how it's starting to reshape pretty much every industry. But we
Yeah.
also want to make sure we dive into security.
Yeah.
After all, the system is only as strong as its weakest link.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of people sort of get caught up in all the hype,
Right.
but understanding the security challenges, that's really key to understanding the true potential of blockchain.
Exactly. So to start, let's rewind a bit. I feel like everyone throws around terms like decentralized ledger.
Yeah.
But what does that even mean in practice?
Well, think about it this way, like traditional systems rely on those central authorities, like banks or even governments, to maintain records and control access. Blockchain basically flips that whole model on its head.
So instead of a single point of control, we have this distributed network where everyone has a copy of the ledger, like a shared Google Doc, but way more secure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to think about it, a helpful starting point.
Same.
But it does kind of oversimplify the cryptographic magic that's happening behind the scenes.
Right.
It's not just about shared access, it's about an intricate system of blocks that are all linked together,
Okay.
each containing a record of transactions and secured by these cryptographic hashes.
Ah, those cryptographic hashes. They're like the fingerprints of each block, right?
Okay.
Someone tries to tamper with the data and the fingerprints no longer match. Everyone knows something's wrong.
Exactly, precisely. And this chain of blocks, each linked to the one before it, creates this incredibly strong
Yeah?
historical record. Any alteration would disrupt the whole chain, making manipulation practically impossible.
Okay, that's where I'm starting to see why people get so excited about this security aspect. But I've always been a little fuzzy on how transactions get verified without a central authority calling the shots. How does that even work?
So that's where the consensus mechanisms come in. Two of the most common are proof of work and proof of stake.
Okay.
Proof of work, the system Bitcoin uses, relies on miners competing to solve these complex mathematical problems, to add a new block to the chain.
It's like this massive, decentralized, computational puzzle. Whoever solves it gets to add the next chapter to the blockchain story. But what about proof of stake?
Okay, yeah,
Some of my sources suggest it's a more efficient and democratic approach.
you're right. Proof of stake aims to be less energy intensive. It shifts the power dynamic from raw computing power to community investment.
Got it.
The more stake you have in the system, meaning the more cryptocurrency you own,
Uh-huh.
the more influence you have in validating transactions.
So it's less about brute force calculations and more about having skin in the game.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense from a security and sustainability perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And as blockchain technology matures, we're seeing a move toward these more efficient and inclusive consensus models like proof of stake.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the fundamentals. But let's be honest, most people, even those outside the tech world, have at least heard of Bitcoin. What I find really interesting is how blockchain is moving beyond just cryptocurrency. Some of the sources you sent talk about revolutionizing things like supply chains and healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And the potential applications are vast. Let's take supply chains, for example.
Okay.
Imagine being able to track a product's journey from its origin all the way to your doorstep, verifying its authenticity at each step of the way.
That would be a game changer, especially in industries plagued by, counterfeiting
Yeah.
or where ethical sourcing is really important. No more shady dealings.
Exactly. Blockchain brings that transparency and accountability to the forefront. Consumers can have confidence in the products they're buying, and businesses can build those stronger, more resilient supply chains.
Okay, so that's supply chains. What about healthcare? I've heard whispers of blockchain revolutionizing how we manage medical records.
Yeah, that's another really exciting area. One of the biggest challenges in healthcare is the secure and efficient sharing of patient data. With blockchain, we can create a system where patients have complete control over their medical records, granting access to doctors or researchers only with their consent.
So no more bulky files, faxes, or
Yeah.
worrying about who has access to your sensitive information.
Right.
That would be incredibly empowering for patients.
It's about putting individuals back in the driver's seat when it comes to their health data.
Right.
And it goes beyond just medical records. Blockchain can be used to streamline clinical trials, track the provenance of pharmaceuticals, and even manage insurance claims more efficiently.
It's mind-boggling to think how much blockchain could transform healthcare as we know it.
And that's really just scratching the surface, from voting systems to digital identity management, the possibilities are really expansive.
Now, I'm really intrigued by one topic you've been exploring, the world of blockchain security. You've sent over some sources that dive deep into careers in this field, and it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely, and for good reason. As more industries embrace blockchain, the need for skilled professionals who can secure these systems is skyrocketing. We're talking about protecting not just financial assets, but potentially entire supply chains, sensitive medical data, and even critical infrastructure.
Wow, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I find the whole cybersecurity world a bit intimidating. I feel like you need to be a coding genius to even understand the basics.
Well, it definitely helps to have a solid foundation in programming and computer science. But what's really essential is a deep understanding of how blockchain works at its core, its strengths, and crucially, its vulnerabilities.
So it's not just about building impenetrable walls,
Right.
but about understanding how attackers might try to exploit the system's inherent complexities.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a constant cat and mouse game. Security professionals really need to stay ahead of the curve, anticipating those new threats and developing innovative solutions to protect these decentralized systems.
Okay, now I'm getting a little nervous just thinking about it. What kind of attacks are we even talking about here?
Let's start with one of the most well-known threats, the 51% attack. This highlights the importance of a truly decentralized network.
Mm.
The more distributed the network is, the harder and more expensive it becomes for any single entity to gain control of a majority of the computing power.
Because if someone manages to control over half the network, they can essentially rewrite the rules, right?
Exactly. They could potentially double spend coins, reverse transactions, or even prevent new transactions from being confirmed.
Okay, that's scary. Sounds like the Wild West out there.
It can feel that way sometimes. But that's why the role of security professionals is so critical. And they're not just focused on preventing those 51% attacks, they're also dealing with things like reentrancy attacks, which exploit vulnerabilities in smart contract code to drain funds.
So it's not just about securing the network itself, but also ensuring that the applications built on top of it are rock solid.
Precisely. And that's where things like smart contract audits and penetration testing come into play. Security professionals need to really examine every single line of code, looking for potential loopholes and vulnerabilities.
It's almost like detective work, trying to anticipate how a criminal might try to break in.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And as blockchain technology evolves, these attack vectors will become even more sophisticated, requiring security professionals to constantly learn and adapt.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this field is in such high demand. But with all these potential threats lurking in the shadows, it makes you wonder if blockchain really as secure as everyone claims it to be.
That's a great question. Ultimately, blockchain security relies on a combination of factors: the strength of its cryptography, the decentralization of its network, and the vigilance of its security professionals.
So it's a collective effort, a
Mhm.
shared responsibility to maintain the integrity of the system.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have a thriving ecosystem of developers, researchers, and security experts who are constantly pushing the boundaries, ensuring that blockchain lives up to its promise of a secure and trustworthy digital future.
Now, speaking of a secure digital future, let's talk about one of your specific areas of interest: decentralized storage with Pinata, which is built on this thing called the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS. I have to admit, the whole concept of a decentralized internet still feels a bit like science fiction to me.
Yeah, it is definitely a paradigm shift from the centralized internet that we're all used to. Think about how we currently store data on massive servers owned and controlled by these tech giants like Google or Amazon.
Right, so if those servers go down or if those companies decide to restrict access, we're kind of out of luck.
Exactly. Decentralized storage, like Pinata on IPFS, aims to break free from that model. Instead of your files living on a single company's servers, they're actually distributed across this vast network of computers, kind of like this giant peer-to-peer file sharing system.
So even if one computer goes offline or if one part of the network is censored, the data is still accessible from other points in the network.
Hmm.
Kind of like a digital hydra. You cut off one head and two more grow back.
That's a vivid analogy.
Yeah.
And this resilience is really one of the key advantages of decentralized storage. It makes it incredibly difficult to censor information or take down content.
I see the appeal, especially for folks who really value information freedom and control over their data. But how does Pinata fit into all this?
So Pinata provides a user-friendly interface for interacting with IPFS. IPFS,
Okay.
making it easier to upload, manage, and access content that's stored on this decentralized network.
Yeah.
Think of it as a bridge between the complex world of IPFS and the needs of everyday users and developers.
So Pinata is kind of like a gateway to this decentralized storage universe. It makes it more accessible and user-friendly.
Exactly, yeah. And it's specifically designed for what we call Web3 applications, which integrate seamlessly with blockchain platforms like Ethereum.
Yeah.
This opens up a whole world of possibilities for building secure, censorship-resistant applications
Hmm.
that are controlled by users, not by corporations.
I'm starting to see the potential here. But how does all of this relate to security? We talked about those cryptographic hashes earlier, right?
Hmm.
How do they come into play with decentralized storage?
That's a great question. Pinata and IPFS in general rely on content addressing,
Right.
meaning files are identified by their unique content rather than their location.
So it's like each file has its own unique fingerprint based on its content.
Yeah.
If even a single bit of data is changed, that fingerprint changes completely.
Precisely, yeah. Which makes tampering virtually impossible. Even if someone gains access to one of the nodes in the network, they can't alter the data without it being obvious to everyone else.
Okay, now that's what I call robust security. No more worrying about sneaky modifications or deletions going unnoticed. This decentralized storage concept is really starting to grow on me.
It's definitely a powerful alternative to that traditional cloud storage, especially for those who prioritize security, privacy, and control over their data.
I have to admit, before this deep dive, I never fully grasped the implications of decentralized storage. But now I see how it fits into this broader vision of a more open, resilient, and user-centric internet.
And really, this is just the beginning. As more people wake up to the potential of decentralized technologies, you can expect to see even more innovative applications emerge in the years to come.
It's exciting, but it also feels like we're standing on the precipice of a massive technological shift. What other areas of our digital lives could be transformed by decentralized technologies like blockchain and IPFS?
Well, that's a conversation for our next segment. We'll delve into the evolving landscape of blockchain applications, exploring how this technology is reshaping industries far beyond the realms of finance and data storage.
Shit sounds like a fascinating journey. I can't wait to see what other surprises this deep dive has in store.
It's amazing to think how blockchain is kind of steadily weaving itself into the fabric of our digital lives. We've seen its potential in finance and data storage, but, the applications extend far beyond that.
Yeah, it's fascinating how this tech, often associated with things like anonymity and decentralization, is also being explored for its potential to increase transparency and accountability.
That's a good point. It seems paradoxical, but blockchain's ability to track and record every single transaction in an immutable manner actually lends itself to greater transparency.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like this public ledger that anyone can audit,
Yeah.
making it way harder for bad actors to hide their tracks.
Exactly. Take supply chain management, for instance. By tracking the journey of a product on a blockchain, from its raw materials to the final point of sale, companies can provide consumers with verifiable proof of origin and ethical sourcing.
That's huge, especially for consumers who are becoming more and more conscious of where their products come from and how they're made. It cuts through all that greenwashing and allows for genuine accountability.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just consumer goods. Imagine using blockchain to track the distribution of humanitarian aid,
Yeah.
ensuring that resources reach their intended recipients without being lost to corruption or inefficiency.
That's a powerful example. It could really revolutionize the way we approach humanitarian efforts, bringing much-needed transparency to a sector that's often riddled with logistical challenges.
And the potential applications in governance are also compelling. Imagine blockchain-based voting systems
Yeah.
that offer greater security, transparency, and accessibility, reducing the potential for fraud and manipulation.
That would be a game changer, especially in regions where trust in traditional voting systems is low. It could really empower citizens and strengthen democratic processes.
It's a vision that a lot of people are working towards, but it's important to acknowledge the challenges.
Right.
For instance, ensuring voter privacy while maintaining transparency on the blockchain. That's a delicate balancing act.
Right. You can't have one without the other. It's clear that blockchain has the potential to disrupt traditional power structures and bring greater transparency to so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
But it's not like a magic bullet solution, right?
Not at all. It's a very powerful tool, but its success depends on careful implementation, addressing those ethical considerations, and fostering collaboration among stakeholders.
Now let's switch gears a little bit and go back to a topic I know you're really passionate about, the future of blockchain security. You mentioned earlier it's this constant cat and mouse game between security professionals and attackers. What are some of the emerging threats that are kind of keeping you up at night?
Well, as blockchain technology evolves, so do the methods used to exploit it. One area that's particularly concerning is the rise of sophisticated attacks targeting decentralized finance, or DeFi, platforms.
DeFi has really exploded in popularity over the last couple of years, offering these exciting alternatives to traditional financial services. But I imagine that also makes it a prime target for hackers.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing an increase in attacks that exploit the complexity and rapid pace of innovation in the DeFi space. For example, things like flash loan attacks.
Okay.
These allow attackers to borrow massive amounts of cryptocurrency, manipulate market prices, and then repay the loan, all within a single transaction block, leaving very little trace of their activity.
It sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood heist movie.
It really does, and the speed at which these attacks occur makes them incredibly difficult to detect and prevent.
So how do security professionals even begin to address these evolving threats? It must feel like trying to hit a moving target.
It's definitely challenging. One approach that's gaining traction is the use of formal verification techniques
No.
to mathematically prove the security of smart contracts. It's a rigorous process that involves analyzing the code to identify any potential vulnerabilities before they can be exploited.
So it's like stress testing the code to make sure it can withstand even the most sophisticated attacks.
Exactly, yeah. And this is becoming increasingly important as smart contracts handle more complex logic and manage larger amounts of value.
It sounds like the blockchain security landscape is becoming more and more complex, demanding a higher level of expertise from those working to protect these systems.
Absolutely. And it's not just about technical skills. Security professionals need to stay informed about the latest attack vectors. They need to collaborate with each other to share knowledge and constantly adapt their strategies to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about preventing those individual attacks, but about building a really robust and resilient ecosystem that can withstand that constant evolution of threats.
Precisely. And that requires a collaborative effort from, developers, researchers, security auditors, and even policymakers to create a framework that fosters both innovation and security.
Speaking of innovation, let's dive back into the world of decentralized storage. We talked about the immutability of content addressing with PNADA and IPFS.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful concept, but I imagine there are concerns about things like performance and reliability, especially when you compare it to the massive infrastructure of centralized cloud providers.
Those are valid concerns. But the decentralized storage space is evolving rapidly to address them. One key innovation is the use of content delivery networks, or CDNs, that are specifically designed for decentralized storage.
So instead of retrieving data from a single central server, these CDNs distribute content across a network of nodes located closer to users, reducing latency and improving download speeds.
Exactly, yeah. And these CDNs are becoming increasingly sophisticated. They're leveraging things like peer-to-peer sharing and intelligent routing to optimize performance.
It sounds like the decentralized internet is starting to catch up to the speed and efficiency of its centralized counterpart.
It's definitely moving in that direction, and while there are definitely still challenges to overcome, the added benefits of security, resilience, and censorship resistance make decentralized storage a very compelling alternative.
Now, one of the key aspects of decentralized storage that you mentioned earlier is its potential to empower individuals with greater control over their data. Can you maybe elaborate on that a bit more?
Absolutely. In the current paradigm, our data is often siloed in these massive data centers, that are controlled by large corporations. We have very little control over how our data is used, shared, or even monetized.
It's like we've become data subjects rather than data owners. We've ceded control to these tech behemoths, trusting them to act in our best interests, which isn't always the case.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Decentralized storage offers a very different vision. By distributing data across a network of nodes, it reduces our reliance on these centralized gatekeepers. It gives individuals more agency over their digital lives.
So it's not just about where the data is stored, but about who has control over it and how it's used.
Exactly, yeah. Imagine a world where you could choose to share your data directly with those you trust without having to rely on those intermediaries or worry about your privacy being compromised.
That's a really powerful vision.
Yeah.
It puts individuals back in the driver's seat when it comes to their digital identity and their data.
And it goes beyond just personal data. Decentralized storage can be used to create these secure and transparent platforms for sharing information, fostering collaboration, and building communities.
So we're not just talking about storing files, but about creating a more open, equitable, and user-centric internet.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what makes this technology so exciting. It has the potential to fundamentally change the way we interact with information and even with each other.
Okay, I'm completely on board with this decentralized vision of the future.
Mm.
But let's get real for a moment. How do we even get there?
Okay.
What needs to happen for decentralized technologies like blockchain and IPFS to become more mainstream?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of brilliant minds are working on. One key factor is ease of use. For decentralized technologies to really take off, they need to be as user-friendly and intuitive as the centralized platforms they're aiming to replace.
Right, because right now it feels like you need a computer science degree just to understand how to use some of these tools. We need to make the decentralized internet as accessible as like clicking on a Google search result.
Absolutely, yeah. We need those user-friendly interfaces, intuitive applications, and educational resources that kind of demystify these complex technologies. The good news is the developer community is really working tirelessly to create tools and platforms that abstract away those technical complexities, making it easier for everyday users to interact with the decentralized web.
So it's about building those bridges between the technical and the non-technical, making these technologies more approachable and understandable for the masses.
Precisely, yeah. Another key factor is education. We need to raise awareness about the potential benefits of decentralized technologies, not just within the tech community, but among policymakers, businesses, and the general public.
It's about shifting the narrative away from all the hype and all the technical jargon
Yeah.
and focusing on the actual benefits that these technologies can bring to our lives.
Yeah.
Greater security, privacy, control, and empowerment.
Exactly. And that education needs to happen at all levels, in schools, universities, online communities, and in public forums.
Right, we need to demystify the decentralized web and make it clear that it's not just for the tech geeks, it's for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. And as more people understand the potential of these technologies, the demand for decentralized solutions will grow, driving further innovation and adoption.
It's a virtuous cycle. The more people use decentralized technologies, the more robust and accessible they become,
Right.
which in turn attracts even more users.
Precisely. And that's why it's so important to get involved, explore these technologies, experiment, ask questions, contribute to their development.
It's not just about watching from the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's about becoming active participants in shaping this decentralized future.
Exactly. The future of the internet is being written right now, and it's up to all of us to decide what that future looks like.
Now, you've mentioned that you've been diving deep into the career opportunities within the blockchain space,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the realm of blockchain development.
Right.
It seems like a field that's just exploding with possibilities.
Yeah, it's a really dynamic space. As more industries kind of embrace blockchain, the demand for skilled developers who can build and maintain these decentralized systems, it's skyrocketing.
Okay, so let's say I'm intrigued by this whole blockchain development thing.
Hmm.
What kind of skills and qualifications would I even need to pursue a career in this field?
Well, first and foremost, a strong foundation in computer science is crucial. You'll need to be comfortable with concepts like, data structures, algorithms, and software design principles.
It's not just about knowing how to code. It's about understanding that underlying logic and architecture of software development.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, you'll need to be proficient in at least one programming language that's commonly used in blockchain development.
I've heard of languages like Solidity, which is used for developing smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. Is that one of the key languages to learn?
Solidity is definitely in high demand. Ethereum is still one of the most popular blockchain platforms for developing those decentralized applications, or dApps.
Apps, that's another term I keep hearing.
Yeah.
Can you maybe give me a quick rundown of what those are and why they're so significant?
Sure. dApps are essentially applications that run on a decentralized network like a blockchain rather than on a centralized server.
Okay.
This makes them more secure, transparent, and resistant to censorship, as they don't rely on that single point of control.
So it's like taking the power of blockchain beyond just cryptocurrency and applying it to all sorts of applications,
Yeah.
from social media platforms to supply chain management systems.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why the demand for blockchain developers who can build these dApps is so high.
Okay, so Solidity is a good place to start. What other programming languages are kind of important for aspiring blockchain developers?
Python is a very versatile language. It's widely used in blockchain development, particularly for things like data analysis and scripting.
And JavaScript was popular for building the front-end interfaces for dApps, right?
Yes, JavaScript is essential for creating those user-facing elements of decentralized applications, making them interactive and accessible.
It seems like there's a lot to learn. Are there any other skills or qualities that are important for success in this field?
Absolutely. Beyond just those technical skills, it's essential to have a deep understanding of how blockchain technology works at a fundamental level. You need to be familiar with concepts like cryptography, consensus mechanisms, and distributed ledger technology.
So it's not just about knowing how to code. It's about understanding the underlying principles and philosophies of blockchain.
Precisely. And it's also crucial to be a problem solver and a critical thinker. The blockchain space is constantly evolving, so you need to be able to adapt to new challenges and find creative solutions.
So it's a field that rewards curiosity, adaptability, and a willingness to learn and experiment.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a field that offers just immense opportunities for those who are passionate about building a more decentralized, secure, and equitable future.
Now, you've mentioned that there are, different types of roles within blockchain development.
hmm
What are some of the most common paths that someone could pursue?
One of the most sought-after roles is that of a smart contract developer. These are the specialists who write the code that governs the behavior of self-executing contracts on the blockchain.
So they're essentially the architects of the agreements and transactions that take place on the blockchain.
Precisely, yeah. And this role requires a deep understanding of blockchain principles, security best practices, and the specific programming languages used for smart contract development.
Sounds like a highly specialized role, but also a crucial one, as the security and functionality of smart contracts are essential for the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely, yeah. Another critical role is that of a blockchain architect. These individuals are responsible for designing the overall architecture of blockchain systems, ensuring that they are secure, scalable, and efficient.
So they're like the masterminds behind the infrastructure that supports all the applications and transactions on the blockchain.
Exactly. They need to have a very broad understanding of blockchain technology. A keen eye for security, the ability to think strategically about how to build systems that can handle the demands of a decentralized world.
It sounds like a challenging but incredibly rewarding role. What are some of the other paths that someone could pursue in blockchain development?
Well, there are also more specialized roles like blockchain security engineers who focus on protecting blockchain systems from attacks, and blockchain data analysts who use data analysis techniques to extract insights from blockchain data.
It seems like there's a lot of variety and opportunity within the blockchain development space.
Absolutely, yeah. And the field is constantly evolving with new roles and specializations emerging all the time. It's a very exciting time to be involved in this dynamic and transformative industry.
Now let's talk about another area that's very closely related to blockchain development, blockchain security. You mentioned earlier that the stakes are high in this field. As we're talking about protecting not just financial assets, but potentially entire supply chains, sensitive medical data, and even critical infrastructure, can you maybe delve a bit deeper into the specific challenges that blockchain security professionals are grappling with?
Sure. One of the biggest challenges is the constant evolution of threats. As blockchain technology matures, attackers are becoming more sophisticated, finding new ways to exploit vulnerabilities and circumvent security measures.
It sounds like this never-ending arms race between the good guys and the bad guys.
In a way, it is. Security professionals really need to constantly adapt their strategies, stay informed about the latest attack vectors, and, develop innovative solutions to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so what are some of the specific threats that are kind of keeping security professionals up at night? We talked about 51% attacks earlier, where an attacker gains control of a majority of the network's computing power. Are those still a major concern?
51% attacks are a potential threat, especially for smaller or less established blockchains. But for larger, more decentralized networks like, Bitcoin or Ethereum, they are incredibly difficult and expensive to pull off.
So the more decentralized the network, the more secure it is against this type of attack.
Exactly. It's like trying to take over a country with millions of citizens, each with their own vote. The more distributed the power, the harder it is to seize control.
That makes sense. What about other types of attacks? You mentioned reentrancy attacks earlier, which exploit vulnerabilities in smart contract code.
Reentrancy attacks are a serious concern because they can allow attackers to drain funds from smart contracts without leaving a trace. It's kind of like a digital pickpocket exploiting a loophole in the code to siphon off funds.
That's a scary thought. It highlights the importance of rigorous security audits for smart contracts.
Absolutely. Security auditors need to meticulously examine every line of code, looking for potential vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. It's a demanding job that requires a deep understanding of both blockchain technology and security best practices.
So we're not just talking about protecting the network itself, but also about securing the applications and smart contracts built on top of it.
Exactly, yeah. And as the complexity of dApps continues to grow, so too will the challenges for security professionals. They need to be able to anticipate potential vulnerabilities, develop robust testing methodologies, and implement those effective security measures to protect these decentralized systems.
It sounds like the blockchain security landscape is a really dynamic and constantly evolving field, demanding a high level of expertise and adaptability from those who choose to work in it.
It's certainly not for the faint of heart. But for those who are passionate about security, who enjoy solving complex puzzles, and who want to play a role in shaping a more secure digital future, it's an incredibly rewarding and impactful career path.
Now let's talk about something that I know you're particularly interested in. The role of blockchain in promoting transparency and accountability in different sectors. We've already touched upon some examples like supply chain management and voting systems. But I'm curious to explore other areas where blockchain's immutable ledger could bring greater transparency and trust.
Yeah, it's a vast landscape with a lot of potential. One area that's ripe for disruption is the charitable sector.
Okay.
Imagine using blockchain to track donations, ensuring that funds reach their intended beneficiaries and are actually used for their designated purposes.
That would be a game changer, both for donors and recipients. Donors could have greater confidence that their contributions are being used effectively, and charities could demonstrate their transparency and accountability, building trust and attracting more support.
Precisely, yeah. And it goes beyond just that financial transparency. Blockchain can be used to track the impact of charitable programs, providing that verifiable data on the outcomes and effectiveness of their efforts.
That's crucial. It's not just about where the money goes, but about what it achieves. Blockchain could really help to bridge that gap between intention and impact in the charitable sector.
Absolutely. And this same principle of transparency can be applied to other sectors as well. Take the pharmaceutical industry, for example. Blockchain can be used to track the provenance of drugs, ensuring their authenticity and safety, and also to monitor their distribution, preventing counterfeiting and theft.
That's a huge win for public health. It could help to combat the global problem of counterfeit drugs and make sure patients are actually receiving safe and effective treatments.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the potential impact on governance.
Right.
Blockchain-based systems could be used to create more transparent and accountable public records, reducing the potential for corruption and actually increasing citizen trust in government institutions.
So we're talking about using blockchain to create a more open, equitable, and trustworthy society where information is accessible, transactions are verifiable, and accountability is really paramount.
Precisely, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to explore the potential benefits and challenges of blockchain, and really work together to shape a future where this technology is used responsibly and ethically.
Now, you've mentioned that you've been kind of exploring the potential impact of blockchain on the creative industries. I have to admit, I'm intrigued by this intersection of technology and creativity. How do you see blockchain reshaping the world of, art, music, and entertainment?
It's a fascinating area with a lot of potential for innovation and disruption. One of the most significant impacts is in the realm of digital right management, or DRM.
Okay.
Blockchain can be used to create secure and transparent systems for tracking ownership and licensing of digital content.
That's a big deal for artists and creators who often struggle to protect their intellectual property in the digital age, where content can be so easily copied and distributed without their consent.
Absolutely. Blockchain offers a way to create a more equitable and sustainable system for creators to monetize their work and, control how it's used.
So instead of relying on these intermediaries like record labels or streaming platforms, artists could use blockchain to actually sell their music or artwork directly to fans, retaining a greater share of the revenue and having more control over their creative output.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just music and art. Blockchain can be used to track the ownership and licensing of any type of digital content, from videos and ebooks to even software and online courses.
It's a potential game changer for the entire creative economy, giving creators more power and control over their work.
Another area where blockchain is having a profound impact is in the world of art and collectibles. Non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, are unique digital assets that are verified and tracked on the blockchain.
NFTs have just exploded in popularity over the last few years, with artists and collectors embracing this new way to create, sell, and trade digital art. But what makes NFTs so different from traditional digital art files, which can be easily copied and shared?
That's a key distinction. NFTs are not simply copies of digital art files. They are unique tokens that represent ownership of that original artwork.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital certificate of authenticity
Right.
that's permanently recorded on the blockchain.
So even if someone copies the digital art file, they don't own the original artwork, as that ownership is tied to the NFT, which is unique and can't be replicated.
Exactly. This has created a whole new market for digital art, allowing artists to sell their work in a way that was never before possible.
It's fascinating to see how blockchain is not only protecting the rights of creators, but also creating new opportunities for them to monetize their work and connect with collectors.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is really just the beginning. As blockchain technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative applications emerge in the creative industries, empowering creators and transforming the way we experience art, music, and entertainment.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential of blockchain to disrupt not just industries, but entire paradigms. But let's face it, no technology is without its challenges.
Right.
What are some of the hurdles that blockchain needs to overcome to kind of reach its full potential?
You're absolutely right. Every emerging technology faces obstacles and criticisms, and blockchain is no exception. One of the most common criticisms is its energy consumption.
Yeah, I've heard concerns about the environmental impact of blockchain, especially for systems like Bitcoin that use those really energy-intensive consensus mechanisms like proof of work.
Those concerns are valid, and it's important to acknowledge the environmental footprint of those blockchain systems. However, it's also important to remember that not all blockchains are created equal in terms of energy consumption.
Right, we talked earlier about how proof-of-stake systems like Ethereum 2.0 are designed to be much more energy efficient than proof-of-work systems.
Exactly. And there are ongoing efforts to make even proof-of-work-based blockchains more sustainable, such as using renewable energy sources to power those mining operations.
So while energy consumption is a legitimate concern, it's not an insurmountable obstacle, and the blockchain industry is actively working to address it.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really important to weigh the potential benefits of blockchain against its environmental impact, as we do with any new technology.
Another challenge that I often hear about is scalability.
Mm-hmm.
Can blockchain systems handle the massive volume of transactions that we see in today's digital world?
Scalability is a key challenge for blockchain technology. As the number of users and transactions on a blockchain network grows, it can become more difficult to maintain that performance and efficiency.
That makes sense. If every node on the network needs to process every transaction, things could get bogged down pretty quickly.
Exactly. But there are efforts underway to develop solutions to improve blockchain scalability. One approach is sharding, which involves dividing the network into smaller, more manageable segments, allowing for parallel processing of transactions.
So instead of having the entire network process every single transaction, you break it down into smaller chunks that can be handled simultaneously.
Precisely. And another approach is what we call layer 2 scaling solutions, which move some of those transactions off of the main blockchain to improve efficiency.
It sounds like the blockchain community is actively working to address that scalability challenge, recognizing that it's essential for wider adoption.
Absolutely, yeah. And as blockchain technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative solutions emerge to address the scalability issue.
Another criticism that blockchain sometimes faces is its complexity.
Okay.
The underlying technology can seem really daunting to non-technical users, which can create a barrier to entry.
That's a valid point. The technical complexities of blockchain can be a bit intimidating, but it's important to remember that you don't need to understand how a car engine works to drive a car.
Right. You just need to know how to use the steering wheel, the pedals, and the dashboard.
Exactly. And similarly, there are those user-friendly wallets, platforms, and applications that kind of abstract away those technical complexities of blockchain, allowing users to interact with decentralized systems without needing a deep understanding of the underlying technology.
So it's about making blockchain accessible to the masses, just like the internet became accessible to everyday users through those intuitive web browsers and those user-friendly websites.
Precisely. And as the technology matures, we can expect to see even more user-friendly tools and interfaces emerge, making blockchain accessible to anyone who wants to use it.
Now let's talk about the regulatory landscape surrounding blockchain. It's a relatively new technology, and I imagine that governments and regulatory bodies around the world are still figuring out how to approach it.
That's correct. The regulatory landscape for blockchain is still evolving, and there's a lot of variation from one jurisdiction to another.
So some countries are more welcoming to blockchain than others.
Yes, some jurisdictions have embraced blockchain and created favorable regulatory frameworks, while others have taken a more cautious approach,
Okay.
expressing concerns about issues like money laundering, consumer protection, and financial stability.
That makes sense. It's a new technology with, potentially disruptive implications. So it's understandable that regulators would want to proceed with caution.
Absolutely. And there's also the challenge of regulating decentralized applications, or dApps,
Right.
which often operate across borders and fall outside the traditional purview of national regulators.
It's a complex and evolving landscape that requires careful navigation.
Precisely. And it's important for businesses operating in the blockchain space to stay informed about the latest regulatory developments, to engage in dialogue with regulators, and to work proactively to ensure compliance.
Now, let's turn our attention to the future of blockchain. It's a technology that seems to hold immense potential, but, it's still really early days. What are some of the trends and developments that you're most excited about?
One area that's generating a lot of buzz is the metaverse.
Yes, the metaverse, envisioned as this persistent, immersive, and interconnected virtual world. And I've heard that blockchain is seen as a key enabling technology for its development.
That's correct. Blockchain can be used to create secure and transparent systems for digital identity, ownership of virtual assets, and in-game economies within the metaverse.
So you could have a digital identity that you can use across different metaverse platforms.
Yeah.
And you could own virtual land, buildings, or objects that are verifiably yours thanks to blockchain technology.
Exactly. And blockchain can also facilitate interoperability between those different metaverse platforms, allowing users to seamlessly move their digital assets and identities from one virtual world to another.
That's crucial. It would prevent the metaverse from becoming fragmented into these walled gardens, allowing for greater freedom and portability for users.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just the metaverse. Blockchain is also expected to have a major impact on other emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and Web3.
I've heard about Web3 being touted as the next iteration of the internet, built on blockchain technology.
Yeah.
What are some of the key differences between Web3 and the current internet, what people call Web 2?
So Web 2 is largely characterized by these centralized platforms and services controlled by a handful of tech giants.
Right.
Web 3, on the other hand, is envisioned as a more decentralized and user-centric internet, where individuals have greater control over their data, their identity, and even their online experiences.
So it's a shift from a world where we're primarily consumers of content and services that are created and controlled by others, to a world where we're also creators, owners, and participants in the digital ecosystem.
Precisely. And blockchain is seen as a really key technology for enabling this transition, as it provides the infrastructure for decentralized data storage, secure transactions, and verifiable digital identities.
It's a compelling vision of a more open, equitable, and empowering internet. But it also sounds like a massive undertaking, requiring a fundamental shift in how we think about and interact with the digital world.
It's definitely a challenging but incredibly exciting endeavor, and it's one that's worth pursuing as the potential benefits are immense.
Now, as we delve deeper into the potential of blockchain, it's important to acknowledge that this technology isn't without its ethical considerations and potential downsides. What are some of the social and ethical implications that we need to be mindful of as blockchain becomes more integrated into our lives?
That's a very crucial point. As with any powerful technology, blockchain has the potential for both good and bad. One concern is that the decentralized nature of blockchain could make it more difficult to regulate and govern,
Right.
potentially leading to challenges in areas like consumer protection and law enforcement.
That makes sense. If there's no central authority controlling the network, it could be more difficult to enforce rules and regulations, potentially creating opportunities for fraud, abuse, and criminal activity.
Exactly. And there's also the potential for blockchain to exacerbate existing inequalities if access to technology and resources is not evenly distributed.
Right. We need to make sure that the benefits of blockchain are accessible to all, not just to a select few.
Absolutely. And we also need to be mindful of the potential environmental impact of those blockchain systems, as we discussed earlier. It's really important to develop and deploy blockchain solutions in a way that is both sustainable and equitable.
It seems like there's a lot to consider as we navigate this uncharted territory of decentralized technologies.
Indeed. It's a complex landscape with both exciting opportunities and potential pitfalls. It's crucial that we approach blockchain development and adoption with a critical eye, considering not only its technical capabilities, but also its broader social, economic, and even ethical implications.
Now, one of the aspects of blockchain that's always kind of intrigued me is its potential to empower individuals and communities. Can you elaborate a bit more on how blockchain can facilitate that greater individual agency and foster new forms of collaboration?
Absolutely. Blockchain can empower individuals by giving them greater control over their data, their finances, and their digital identities. For example, imagine a world where you can securely store and manage your own medical record on a blockchain, granting access to healthcare providers only with your explicit consent.
That would be a huge shift from the current paradigm where our data is often scattered across various institutions and platforms, with very limited control over who has access to it.
Exactly. And blockchain can also facilitate new forms of collaboration and community building. For instance, imagine using blockchain to create decentralized social media platforms, where users have more control over their data and how the platform is governed.
That's an interesting idea. It could lead to those more equitable and democratic online communities,
Yeah.
free from the influence of, centralized platforms and algorithms.
Precisely. And blockchain can also be used to create those new models for crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending, and other forms of collaborative finance, giving individuals and communities more control over their economic lives.
It really does sound like blockchain has the potential to create a more participatory and empowering society where individuals have greater agency and control.
Yeah, that's the hope. But it's important to remember that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
The future of blockchain really hinges on the choices we make, the values we prioritize, and the actions we take.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we choose to use it and what kind of future we want to create with it.
Exactly, yeah. The future of blockchain, it's not predetermined, it's being shaped right now. And it's really up to all of us to decide what that future will look like.
Now, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I'm just left with this sense of awe at the sheer scope and potential of blockchain technology. But I'm also, very aware of the challenges and complexities that lie ahead.
Yeah, it's a journey filled with both promise and uncertainty, and it's one that we're all embarking on together. It's been a really fascinating discussion, and I hope our listeners are leaving with a deeper understanding of not just the technical aspects of blockchain, but also its potential to really reshape the world around us.
I completely agree. It's been amazing to kind of dive deep into these topics with you and to really unpack the nuances and complexities of this technology. But as we've discussed throughout this deep dive, blockchain is more than just a technology. It's a movement, it's a philosophy, and it's a vision for a more decentralized, transparent, and equitable future.
And that future is not something that will be handed to us. It's something that we need to actively create. By engaging with the technology, by asking tough questions, by challenging assumptions, and by working together to build a better world.
So to our listeners, we encourage you, don't just stand on the sidelines. Get involved. Explore the world of blockchain. Experiment with decentralized applications. And join the conversation about how this technology can be used to create a future that we can all be proud of.
That's right. And remember, the future is not set in stone. It's being written right now, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of blockchain. We hope you found it enlightening and empowering, and we look forward to continuing this journey of exploration and discovery with you.